It's time for another Customer Engagement Lab podcast brought to you by Panadoc, and I'm your host, Travis Tyler.
Whoa, I didn't know we were going to have a famous wrestler here today.
He's here.
I would have prepared.
He's got a beer, and he's riding a steer.
Man, that just made me feel so inadequate. I'm like, I didn't even come prepared with a voice.
You don't have your voice. You're the voice of reason.
That's true.
There you go.
That's what I told his mother last night.
In this episode, we're going to be focusing on mental health on revenue teams. Our guest is a very special guy that we'll get to. He made an awesome post on LinkedIn where he talks about the strength in vulnerability. And that's what we're going to be talking about and opening up the show with. We're not going to be opening up the show with a TikTok, Patrick.
What?
No. I have decided to deviate from the TikTok opener for this episode. And instead, you are going to listen
Oh my God.
to an interview that our friends over at Chili Piper did with their podcast that they've relaunched with their director of demand gen, where they interviewed Scott Stratton, who is from Unmarketing, and I wanted to share it with our listeners and get your reaction.
Oh man, I'm going to have some opinions.
So here we go. I'm going to cut it to right at around 17 minutes here. And
That's a weird sound.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I hope somebody skips to the podcast just at this part when they're trying to like
commerce.
skip around it.
But
Can you hear
companies
Scott going
don't
right
bring
now?
in the new recruits like that.
Alright.
They're like, go
I'm
pound the
just going to let
pavement.
you listen for a minute.
Here's a phone number list. Go call them. So the companies are impatient. It's not even necessarily the individuals. I don't usually have a problem with an individual cold calling me. Well, sorry, I do. But my anger is directed towards people who are forcing them to do that. Majority of people don't want to do that, I don't think. The more people want to interrupt somebody's day and try to force them to buy something from them. We have so much more information these days. We have so much more access to that. One of the things that we use is called the sales cloud, which is like 60% of buying decisions in B2B. The decisions of 60% along the way are being made before they ever reach out to a vendor. So if you're just calling, smiling and dialing, randomly trying to cold call these people, I've already done 60% of my work. And you're going to be left out of that. And then how I find that cloud is about information and blog posts and conferences and videos. And if you're not doing any of those things, you're left out of that. So then you call me and you're at your lowest point of leverage. You're at the lowest point of trust and no relationship. And you're just saying, hey, buy from me. And it's buy or good.
Okay, so before you react, the episode is about strength and vulnerability and mental health on revenue teams. I found this post to be so fucking badass from Sahil Mansouri. Open letter to anyone publicly shaming a sales rep. Let's see you try to sell. Make 50 cold calls per day. Get hung up on. Send 100 cold emails per week. Get rejected 99% of the time. Set appointments. Have them no-showed. Give demos while the podcast prospect texts you as a pitch. Send a recap email into the ether, customize a proposal, never hear back, blah, 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 blah. Let's see you fail 99.9% at your job and still have the courage to get back up off the mat, ready to give it your best next time. Salespeople are the heartbeat of every company, and you should never, ever have the courage to do this job. And you could never, ever have the courage to do this job. You know how I know? Because if one cold email gets you this upset, sales is going to eat you alive.
That last line is fantastic.
Yo.
Yeah.
So I thought they
Like that.
kind of... the opening clip I showed you and Sahil's LinkedIn post kind of not contradict each other, but they have different views on this, right? Scott's talking about like why is cold calling even a methodology that companies use? And he makes some points that I'm like, okay, right? He's very convincing. Yet I can't help but like be on Sahil's side over here. And I'm wondering, like, has Scott ever made cold calls? Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I have. I got out of it because I couldn't hack it, just like Sahil said. So where are you at? Where are you at with all these opinions and thoughts on this?
Before I get into like the mental health side of it, cold calling just works. So like regardless, I think if people don't like getting cold calls or not, it works. People don't like getting ads during the Super Bowl all the time, even if they're nice. Like they just want to watch the game.
Yeah.
So there's this friction between like this thing works the best, but people also hate it the most, unfortunately.
Dude, right?
Yeah,
Right?
which sucks for the person on the other end that doesn't want the call, but the issue is it's not relevant to them. If it was relevant to them, they would probably appreciate the call.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten phone calls where I've been like, hey, thanks for calling me. It's a sales call, but I might need to look at this.
Yeah.
But I'm too busy with other stuff to like look into what you do. So thank you for reaching out to me. Then on the mental health part and focusing on Sahil's post, yeah, it's the worst. I mean, like, if you think you hate getting a cold call, make one.
Dude,
it's even worse.
Yes.
It's terrible.
It's awful.
Yeah, but
And
it works.
But it works.
But I mean, people don't like running either. People
and-
don't like eating vegetables all the time.
And people might argue with what we just said, which is, oh, well, you're saying it works. It doesn't work.
Yes, it does.
It does. Why do you think so many companies do this? So many successful companies do this.
Salesforce.
Are there outliers that do not have any outbound sales? Yes, there are. I'm trying to remember which ones there are, but there are.
HubSpot.
They are far and few between, right? And I was thinking about it myself because I do have to agree that, like, as a marketer, like, as Scott said, like, I don't like getting cold calls. It's uncomfortable. Like, he tells a story earlier on. This was an awesome interview, by the way, and Kaylee did an amazing job, and I'm a big fan of this episode. So this isn't to, like, poo-poo on anything. I just was like, I got to talk about this. Like, it got me so excited. And I don't like getting cold calls either, but I've gotten cold calls and they worked on me. And somebody was pushy and it worked on me.
Sometimes it's good. I've thanked people for pushing me.
Yeah.
Like just recently with the car I bought.
I'm a
wasn't
stubborn
feeling it, dude.
motherfucker, man.
I was in the car and I was like, I'm too tall for this car, and I was feeling uncomfortable and I didn't really want to buy it, and the guy pushed me to do it. And the next day I was like, I wish I didn't buy this. And then a week later I was like, this car is amazing. I love this car. It was a great price. I'm getting good value out of it. Because nobody likes buying stuff. Spending money sucks.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see a bunch of money go out of their bank account,
Correct.
but they also want that thing. So it's the salesperson's job to like get you over that like logical hump.
Yeah.
And get you into emotional. You're gonna like this once you have it.
Absolutely. And to go back to mental health, so I think our guest that's going to be coming on, Tim Clarke, he made a post recently about an on-demand mental health AI app called Ginger, and I hadn't heard of them before, but this is very topical because in one of our recent micro clips from this show that we posted, our beloved CRO Nate Gilmore was like, "You guys need therapy," and it was just like such a hilarious one-line comment. And he knows he can say that because he can joke around with us because we're very open about it. But the fact is that like our company does a good job and does offer free mental health benefits. You're able to use mental health stuff for free if you want, or you can pay for it out of your own pocket, or you can use health insurance, whatever. But anyway, I went onto Ginger's onto the post that Ginger had made on LinkedIn, and I thought this was cool because they put together a blog article titled "Harnessing the Power of Storytelling to Improve Your Mental Health." Because I was thinking to myself, like, why do Patrick and I like talking about this stuff so much? What is it about mental health that's like so enticing for listeners? And it's the stories is like how, after reading this article, telling stories can help improve your mental health and other people's mental health, because of this one quote from the article, which is, "Other people's stories can elicit empathy, help people see the world from a new perspective, provide hope, and reassure people that they're not alone in their struggles." And that last part is so true for me. Like that's one of the, we talked about it on an earlier episode, like one of the ways we early on connected was we were just like very vulnerable and open about our own mental health, and just kind of like, here's an open book.
That was a huge tipping point. I feel like when we had that moment, it was like next level of our friendship.
Yeah, it was like stepbrothers. Like, did we just become best friends?
Wait, we both have a similar mental illness? Wow.
And so I was listening to another podcast recently with Bert Kreischer, where he was
similar podcast,
very different, but he talked about storytelling because Bert Kreischer is one of the most influential storytellers today. His thing that got him to fame was his story that he told as part of one of his very early comedy specials called The Machine, where he ended up partying with the Russian mafia in Russia, when he was in college, and they like called him the Machine. And it's a crazy story. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. But he goes on this rant on a recent podcast, and he goes, a lot of people think that they're good at telling stories, but they actually suck. And if you're a salesperson or a marketer, part of telling stories is an important part of your arsenal, right? So like it's double faceted here. I'm talking about it from the mental health perspective, but I'm also talking about it from like a sales and marketing perspective. You can help people see the world from a new perspective, drive impulse, all the stuff that Ginger's talking about with their app and their storytelling. And I want to switch gears and talk about comedians are some of the best storytellers because their career depends on it. And they get instant, objective, honest feedback on if their storytelling is good or not.
Ooh.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if you're a storyteller or you're a marketer or you're a salesperson and you're like, hey, I want to get better at storytelling, or you want to share more mental health stories, like go study like Dave Chappelle, John Mulaney, Mike Birbiglia, Neil Brennan. These guys are amazing storytellers. They are the kings and queens of them. And I thought that this episode could be powerful if maybe we share some stories ourselves with the audience. So I was in like B2C nonprofit educational sales, and I did it for 2 years on the road. We called ourselves Road Warriors, and I was doing 14 weeks selling on the road at college fairs, in high school guidance counselors' offices. I mean, shit, even inside of like people's homes, which is crazy. Like we never do that with
Like
COVID
a
now.
Cutco salesman.
And I had just moved in with my now fiance at the time, and I hit year 2. I was getting paid $33,000 a year, but I loved my school, and I loved what I was doing, and I was good at it. But I hit a wall emotionally. I was fighting with my girlfriend every time we got on the phone, and I was like, this is not good. And I was drinking a lot alone at Marriott bars in like Poughkeepsie, New York, like trying to get into football and watch Sunday Night
Football. To have
Football.
a drinking problem. Too, by the way. I've had a drinking problem in Poughkeepsie.
So I took a leap. I got a marketing internship. I worked part-time delivering pizzas at night and working at a tech company doing marketing internship stuff during the day and driving Uber and Lyft on the weekends to make rent. And it fucking sucked.
You're about 21.
No, I was 24, man.
24?
I was old. I was like older.
Damn. Yeah, that's like college stuff you're doing there.
And yeah, and like there was one point where I was like 2.5 months into my internship washing dishes at Flipper's Pizzeria on 4th Street here in St. Pete. And I just like had like this existential moment where again I hit another emotional psychological wall. I had this college degree. I'm a smart guy. I'm a hardworking dude, and here I am washing dishes at 25 years old, and it's 11:30 at night.
What was the major factor of improving your mental health? Like, why was it so much better?
Just being in therapy, like having a professional, objective person to talk to once a week, and go over this shit. Talk about my plan. Where am I at? Why am I fighting with people? Where is all this conflict coming from? My own like anger, my lack of communication skills, a lot of it, man. Like goes in waves. It's not like I suddenly am cured. Like it comes and goes with life issues.
And like relating to what Sahil said, right? Do you really relate to that post in general?
Yeah.
Does it feel like a huge weight was lifted just because you didn't have to be in these uncomfortable, pushy situations all the time?
Yeah. And before sales, I was in customer success. I didn't even realize it. I worked as
It's also sales.
Yeah, I worked in guest relations at a ski resort for a year in Park City, Utah. Had to deal with all sorts of shit. So it's not like tech. This was B2C, guest relations, customer success, whatever you want to call it. Deal with everything from like, this guy tore his ACL and broke his knee on like a ski run, and I gotta help him out and like call ski patrol, to like somebody getting angry that they ran out of hot chocolate.
My God, can you imagine if that's the stuff that our CSMs dealt with? They called in, they're like, I'm out of K-cups. This is Panadoc support.
We have a
What are you
lost
calling us
child
for?
on this double black diamond run. We
I
need
got
to
into
go
an
get
argument
him.
with my wife last night, and she's not talking to me now. It's like, this is Panadoc support. How can I help you?
if there is a story, you don't have to if you don't want to, but a story that you think, if Sahil's post, if kind of triggered anything for you, of like being in sales and mental health and.
Yeah, I mean, I have this video on my Bravado community, When You Hang Up, that I'd recommend watching if you want my full story. It's like a 20-minute video.
Cool.
But specifically related to this, I think denying your mental health struggles is the #1 cause of more severe mental health struggles in sales. It's something I'm passionate about because in the professional world, if you say to somebody you're bipolar, you're potentially going to lose your job.
Yeah.
But just assuming it's probably going to strike against you, right?
Yeah.
Can I trust this person if they can't get out of bed? If their mood shifts a lot, do I want that person on my team?
Yeah.
People have a lot of preconceived notions about mental illness. But, you know, like 20% of our country has severe mental illness. So there's people around you all day in your work that are severely mentally ill that aren't telling anybody because they're afraid. And then the funny thing is you would never know. They're performing at the same level as everybody else. They might have mood swings or whatever, but they probably hide it. And they're getting the job done. Some of them might be the best performers at your job, but you have no idea.
Yeah.
And that scared me for so long because I have bipolar 2, PTSD, conversion disorder, depression, chronic anxiety. And for the longest time, I just completely shoved that down and I tried to explain away my manic episodes and my depression. And it never worked. And it just led to me feeling like I was wearing a mask all the time.
Yep.
Which leads to this problem, right? Where it's like I can never express how upset I am having to make cold calls all day because my anxiety makes rejection 100 times worse.
Yep.
And then I have a depressive episode where I'm so afraid of like my self-worth going down. And then I have to deal with people telling me that they don't want to talk to me all day. And it feeds into it. And then I go back to my coworkers and I'm so afraid to tell them about it because they might tell my boss and I could get fired. And that adds so much on top of it. And it led to me, especially when I worked at Yelp, just like having huge episodes and like missing work and performing worse because I couldn't tell anybody.
Yep.
So when I think it was like early 2020, right before the pandemic, I went to Costa Rica and I went to surf and sales with Scott Leese.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And they had a storytelling exercise kind of like this one where I told my story in 3 minutes and I was sobbing. And it was the first time I had ever told anyone I work with that I have mental illness, ever.
Was that
Been
kind of a
working for
turning
7
point?
years. Yeah, I've been working in the professional world for 7 years. I never told anybody I had a mental illness. It's a huge turning point for me. Everybody, their reaction was so nice.
Yeah.
And like they looked at me and were like, you could use this. They were like really excited about it. You need to tell your story, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I was expecting all of you to look at me like as a potential risk now.
Yeah. I hope it's okay to say this, but I remember one of the things that I saw you do publicly was you made a LinkedIn post, I think, about a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
And because I think it was like Suicide Awareness Day.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when you have the courage to do that, there's like so many more people will respect you for it, but in your head and like what you've been taught says like don't bring that up, don't talk about it. But when you did that, I was like, I fucking love this dude. And I was like, the balls on this guy with like at the time I think he had like maybe 3,500 followers on LinkedIn to just put that out there. He's like,
I know it was so long ago.
He's like, I got like 6,000 now, bro.
There's also this concern where I feel like people might think I'm just doing it for attention.
Yeah.
And like, oh, look at you, like fake woke, like I just said.
yeah. Or the stuff we talked about on last episode. What was it called? Woke.
Performative wokeness.
Performative wokeness.
Yeah, I'm always afraid someone's gonna look at me and be like, "You're just performing this. You're
Attention
not really
seeking,
this way."
Damn, there's like a term I learned on TikTok for people that main character syndrome.
Yeah, right. That I think I'm so important and all this, and
Yeah.
the only reason I'm doing it is because the first time I did it, I had 3 or 4 people reach out to me privately.
Yep.
And they were like, "Hey, I have bipolar. I've never told anybody. I'm terrified.
Yeah.
Like, thank you so much for doing that."
Yeah.
And then about 6 months later, I saw them publicly talk about it.
Dude.
And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Right?
You've given me the courage to talk about it openly and publicly.
And everybody has that, right? Like anybody that's listening to this and can relate at all, no matter what you're dealing with, if you share it, I guarantee you will affect other people.
Absolutely.
100% gonna happen.
Yeah, we didn't have too many jokes in this one, but you know what? That's okay.
Yeah. There's always the next episode for us to not be funny.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today on the Customer Engagement Lab, your mostly weekly source for insights into the finest minds in the revenue world. And I am your multi-dimensional co-host, Patrick Downs. Some may call me the modern Rod Serling, mostly myself. And today I am joined by several wonderful folks. First of all, I got to spotlight my favorite shining baby boy co-host, Travis Tyler. How are you doing, Travi?
I'm doing really good, man. Thanks for having me.
You keep doing voices today.
I told you I went for a run. Those endorphins are kicking in. I had some iced coffee. I got a good night's sleep. Makes all the difference. I'm just doing better. So I'm extra goofy today.
Love that. It's going to be a goofy one with a serious topic, which is always fun. And I'm joined by one of my very favorite brains, the co-founder of a major force in mental health awareness, UNCrushed. His name is Tim Clarke. Welcome to the show, man. How are you doing today?
Hey, what's up? My mental health is good. I'm always grateful to connect with new people. And yeah, in this moment, I'm looking forward to just being of service and helping however I can.
Have you seen those little plushies that are like reversible, where it's like really happy smiley face when you're doing well, and then a frowny face when you're not doing well, and you could like turn.
I have such a bad poker face, so you could just tell straight away anyway.
But I feel like we need to get one of those.
Right.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to try something out that I used to do on podcasts, which is who are you questions, to get us a little bit of an idea of who you are as a person, and let our audience know. So my first one is going to be, what is the first or earliest memory that you can recall in your life?
I was about 8 years old or 6 years old, guessing here, and feeding bread to some swans in Windsor, England. And there was a lot of swans, and they all came for me because I was not 6'5" at the time. So I think that was childhood trauma. I'm just going to throw that out there. Why not?
It's so peaceful and beautiful in your description. I was like, holy crap, that makes my first childhood memory look like shit.
Yeah,
it took a turn for the trauma.
This is why I keep a distance from swans now, because they were a lot bigger than me at the time. But yeah, there you go. That's my earliest memory.
So feeding bread, attacked, all the hallmarks of a great first memory. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
Second question. What is your favorite thing to do when you're feeling blue?
I get on the phone and call someone. So I had this post-it note I have many post-it notes all around my desk, and you can see the photos behind me. Like I spend so long in this seat every single day. And so I try and surround myself with positivity. And one of them, it says, we are not our thoughts, we are our actions. And I have this thing called a 5-second rule. So I've got 5 seconds from a thought becomes an action. And so for me, being a person in recovery from addiction and mental illness, sometimes my thoughts don't take me to good places. And so the best action that I can take is to get on the phone with someone else. And I call it right sizing my problems. Because a lot of the time, like I was on the phone with someone this morning and his mom just died two days ago. I'm like, oh shit, like my problems are actually pretty small right now. And so just being of service, getting out of self, that's what takes me out of feeling blue.
What kind of characteristics do you look for in people that you call in those moments?
I guess I want to set up, I don't know if it's what I look for in them, it's what I look for in me in terms of actively listening. I don't get on the phone to just speak and say what I want to say. And I don't do it just to be there while they talk, while I'm multitasking, doing other things. I'm looking for myself. Am I going to be present? And then also, like, Brené Brown has this great video, the difference between sympathy and empathy. So, like what I could have said to this person, and grief is a whole other topic. I was speaking with John Barrows about this the other day, and then Dale Dupree. I could say, well, at least it wasn't this, or at least it wasn't that. That's sympathy. And then empathy would be, I went through something similar when I lost my dad. And so to go back to your question, I think it's about creating a safe space of trust and vulnerability. And if I don't do that on my side, then the other person probably isn't going to reciprocate.
That's a good point. I think we sometimes project on people. It's like, oh, you weren't listening to me. When I think a lot of that can come from us being better listeners, because people tend to put that back, right? Like if you give somebody a certain kind of energy, it feels like they tend to reflect it.
Sales 101 as well. You know, if we're on a phone call and I'm just out there trying to pitch without actually listening, I don't think you're going to have much success. And so I think it's probably one of the biggest skills out there is actively listening and being present.
And we're about to go into a conversation that'll be about like real emotional pain. This will be really fun. So I'd like to end this section on what is the last thing that made you laugh, that made you feel physical pain because like your stomach was contorting so bad?
I'm a big meme fan. Is it meme or meme? Meme, I think.
Please say meme though. I appreciate
Please
that.
say Mimi.
Yeah, it's like GIF or GIF, you know. I just scroll through Instagram and like there's one that's one account called British Memes, and it reminds me of home a little bit, watching different people. I can't remember which videos specifically, but I just find it. Oh, I remember it was this dog with the dog's mom and dad, and they run separate directions, and the dog chooses the dad. They do it again, the dog chooses the dad, then they switch sides and it starts to run towards the mom and then it chooses the dad. So I'm just like, I'm loving it. I'm such a big dog fan. And
I know I've seen that video, and me and my
Right.
fiance were like, we should try it to see which way our dog
right.
runs.
I mean, I would lose. There's no chance my dog would choose me. Even though I feed it and love him and do everything for him, he wouldn't choose me. But I can aspire to that.
I love that. I also love that that's a British meme, apparently.
Oh,
Is the dog
I mean, I'm
British?
sure there's, I don't know. It's just, I saw it from the British account, but I'm sure it's probably on every Mimi account out there.
Thank you for correcting me. Yes, it's Mimi.
Is it
Right.
Mimi?
I think it's meme, but I
most
just
definitely
like meme.
meme.
Okay. And this could be a whole podcast topic, you know?
Meme or Mimi?
Right. Answer in the comments.
Because I'm so good at transitions, I'm going to do a sharp right turn into our mental health topic. The first thing I want to ask you is about what the focus has been for you. Like, why are you so passionate about mental health and addiction, and so much so that you made it, a side business?
Yeah. I lost my dad suddenly in 2013 and found myself without any healthy coping mechanisms. And now, with a bit of recovery under my belt, I recognize it actually goes back to childhood, just with the chaos and drama. I never knew how to cope with life, and I wasn't really taught on how to cope with life. And so I immersed myself in education, work, alcohol, drugs, women, food, exercise, nicotine, anything you can think of. And for me, I hit my rock bottom in 2017. And I just remember that sense of loneliness. I've been at Salesforce since 2012. And so I'd already been at the company a fair bit of time, but I was like, I can't possibly come forwards and talk about this because, I prided myself on my work and my image. And that's what drives me every single day, because I didn't feel like I had a voice, and I didn't feel like anyone else had that same problem. And now, we created UNCrushed at the end of 2018. Now there's so many other organizations out there, which is amazing. I'm a big advocate for just anyone talking about mental health. And I just share it, not for the likes, not for the comments. James Buckley reminds me this on a daily basis. It's not about the likes or the comments. It's about helping one person. I put out this post on LinkedIn a few days ago, and there was someone that reached out and they told me they had a certain amount of sobriety days and they were looking at creating similar initiatives at their company. I was like, that's what makes it worth it. I'm a big fan of the saying, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And so just getting to connect with other people, that's what drives me.
What's the most common thing you hear when people reach out to you to talk about mental health and UNCrushed? Like, what's the theme in the story most typically?
Well, on a personal level, people always start off with, "Oh, how long have you been sober?" And I never answer that question because I want to be judged on my actions and behaviors today. And I recognize there are a lot of people who have a lot of time sober who are just complete assholes. And so for me, there's a difference again between sobriety and recovery. And I actively work on myself every single day. I think at an UNCrushed level, I think the biggest conversation is, can I be vulnerable? Is there a risk of discrimination? And I absolutely believe there is. We speak to the people that share their stories on UNCrushed. But it like I was having a conversation with someone that we probably all know the other day, and we both opened up about losing their parents. Instantly brought me closer together. And like I look for, like when both of you reached out to me about doing this podcast, I always say, if someone wants to prospect into me, probably most of the time I don't have anything to buy. Just putting that out there. But if I do, I'm really looking at someone that's going to connect on a personal level around mental health, around vulnerability. And so, but on the flip side of that, like if you don't have any awareness of addiction, alcoholism, mental illness, like people think Richard Harris put this post out the other day, like people think mental health equals mental illness, which is not all the case. I think a lot of people struggle with something: anxiety, depression, burnout, fatigue, languishing, particularly with COVID. So that's the biggest question, and how do we start to feel a little bit more comfortable on coming forwards? And it's not for everyone. And I don't say to everyone, like, go blast your LinkedIn with like, I've got this, I've got that. I highly encourage people, like, don't just focus on the problem, but also focus on the solution. What have you done to navigate through this?
You hear a lot about mental health in sales, and you made the distinction between mental health and illness, but I still see almost zero people discussing straight up mental illness in business. Why do you think that's still such a taboo?
Well, I think it's the risk of being fired. If I talk about the challenges that I had while I was employed, like someone could just say, well, you were drunk or you were high, therefore you should be fired, rather than recognizing that actually it's not just about being drunk or high, it's about having a mental illness and really struggling. And again, Johann Hari talks about like we shouldn't be punishing people, we should be treating people with love. There's a massive difference. And that's why, like, I'm a big believer, like even though I'm an addict, like I think we should decriminalize drugs in the US. There's been massive success in Portugal, in Switzerland, with certain programs, because I think we should stop punishing people. I'm not saying we should all be allowed to go use drugs and drink wherever. I think it should be done. I think we should stop sending people to jail for having marijuana or for having certain substances, because not everyone's an addict. And so I think it's the same in the workspace as well. If someone's got a problem, if they're struggling with, they've just lost a loved one, give them more than a few days off. Stop punishing them and treat them with love and treat them with care.
Just gonna jump in here. Not really a question, but I really connect with what you said about fear of getting fired. I told Patrick that one of the things I really liked about him before I even really knew who he was he took the risk to talk about suicide and how it impacted his life on Suicide Awareness Day. He did it on LinkedIn very openly and very publicly. And I was like, that's bold. That takes so much courage. And it instantly gave me courage to talk to him. And I knew that if I were to open up to him, I'd be kind of like in a safe place to do that. And it's a shame. It really is. Like, this is probably one of the first times I've talked about mental health is in recording these podcasts with Patrick in the working world, because just like you said earlier, Tim, like I have a persona that I want to maintain. I've just been the way I've been raised, the society I'm in. I just want to, like, don't get too personal, don't get too personal there. You leave that stuff at home. And that's why I haven't up until very recently started to get more comfortable doing it. So, and to tag on your last point about when somebody loses somebody, I get like fired up when I see somebody, using bereavement and have to like go through so many goddamn hoops or BS to leverage it. And like, I think of the Seinfeld episode where like he had to provide, George Costanza had to provide a death certificate to get the the cheap airline ticket or the reimbursed airline ticket.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous, man. Like, it doesn't happen luckily as much in tech. I see it with my friends that work in healthcare, which is weird. I see it with my friends that work in education, banking, a little bit more of the like traditional industries. It just, I get fired. I'm like, that's BS. Like, I would quit. I can't believe they're making you like talk about how you lost an uncle and therefore it's not a direct relative, so you don't get to use your bereavement. That's bullshit. So anyway, get fired up, but it made me think of that when you said that.
Yeah, we're all human, you know, and I think we need to bring the humanity back into sales, back into business, back into everything we do. And so for any leaders listening to this podcast, like, I think it starts with you. I think it's so empowering for your employees to listen to a leader talking about their struggles. And it doesn't have to be on LinkedIn. It could just be on a one-to-one basis. But just leading with vulnerability, I think is a great start.
What else can people in leadership do to make people feel more comfortable? I know you said, one-on-one sharing some stories of their own struggles and experience. Is there anything else that you would recommend?
I think really, like, one of the current themes I'm seeing with different research out there, McKinsey just released a new piece, is that there's a big disconnect between employers putting in mental health benefits with their employee EAP, and how employees feel about those benefits. And so, and this is still very fresh, but I would really spend some time looking at, are these actually working, or are you just ticking a box saying that we're doing this? I also spoke to someone else yesterday who is applying for a job right now, and she said what was compelling to her for this recruitment process was they talked about the mental health policies that they had. They proactively brought it up, and it wasn't just a case of like, oh yeah, we support mental health, but what are you doing to create a more diverse and inclusive space? So look at Salesforce, for example. I'm involved with the creation of this employee resource group called Soberforce, which is for sober and sober curious employees and their allies to come together and connect with each other. And like Travis, going back to one of your earlier points about just being open, I think it's hard for men to come forward with toxic masculinity. Men are meant to be strong and don't speak about our emotions. I think it's even harder for African Americans to come forward, for Asians to come forward. There is so many levels of stigma related to mental health or mental illness. So again, just recognizing it's not a one size fits all. You can't just work with your insurance provider to put some benefits in place. And there's going to be some people that will not relate to the three of us, but hopefully we'll be able to find someone that they do relate to. And this is why we're actually trying to do a lot more work right now focused on mental health in the Black community, because there are just so many stigmas associated with that. And that's really where we're going to be focusing a lot of our time over the next several months. We're bringing some new people onto the UNCrushed team to work on that initiative.
If there was, a young salesperson that was just starting, listening right now, what advice would you give them going into it to make sure they do everything they can to protect their sanity in this role, since it can be a huge issue dealing with rejection and just like the internal politics and just overall sales in general?
I love that question. Sorry, but wow,
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Got a fanboy on my question.
It's a question I think about a lot. I presented at the University of Texas in Dallas with Dr. Howard Dover, who does an amazing sales professionals course down there. And I was really thinking about this. Like, here's me with, God, how long have I been doing this? 14, 15 years now, which is scary, in sales and marketing. And therefore, I have a little bit of tenure under my belt to be able to be vulnerable and open on my social media about this. And so I think about it like, what if I was 20? What if I was, or however old, however old you are when you graduate from university. So putting aside the vulnerability and openness, because I don't have a firm answer on that, I think it's very personal and individual, because again, there is a risk of discrimination. I think my biggest piece of advice would be to take care of your health. And it seems so obvious. And I did not do this, just for the record. You know, I worked around the clock. My boss used to say to me, if I didn't respond to his email in 5 minutes, he thought something was wrong. That's how responsive I was. I kind of missed my BlackBerry, the good days. But yeah, I did not take care of my health. And that's because I didn't have the language. I didn't have the awareness. And so now in 2021, like, I think we're all very, very conscious of the importance of taking your health. And so I'll just give the analogy of imagine your body as 4 different rooms. You've got your physical, your mental, your emotional, and spiritual. And so I would just say, are you going into each one of those rooms each day? What are you doing for your physical health? What are you doing for your emotional health? What are you doing for your mental health? And what are you doing for your spiritual health? Whatever that means to you. And just try and visit each room each day. And it could just be being of service. It could be getting on a Peloton. It could be taking your dog for a walk. It could be watching some TV. You know how sometimes for my mental health, I don't have enough fun time. So I just, like last night, I spent some time playing my Xbox. I haven't done that in a long time, but
Hell yeah.
some Tim time, you know?
Yeah. I played some Battlefront 2 on Star Wars with my buddy last night. It was the first time.
I'm a FIFA guy. It's got to be soccer all the way or football.
Yeah, that's how you say it's football.
Right,
Right.
I'm Americanized now.
I like what you said there too, Tim, of just like one of the things that I use with my fiance. I got this, I learned this in therapy when I was like 20, 21 or 22. They call, I forget exactly what they call it. We call it the wellness wheel. So it's very similar, you know, the four rooms. But you basically use different colors to color in how full those wheels. It's like a pie chart, and it's your it's your physical health. So for me and my fiance, we do like, how are we doing in our relationship? How are you doing with your friendships? How are you doing with your family? How are you doing with your spirituality? How are you doing with your your job? How are you doing with your creativity? Tim time. How are you doing with your fun? So I would recommend that too for folks. Go check out some of these diagrams. I know it might sound dorky, especially if you're like 19 years old and listening to this, but super helpful, because you're just so I feel like mental health really plays it likes to creep in on the those that are unaware, and having some awareness of how those different levels are doing and how much you're giving to each of those rooms or each of those slices in your pie can go a long way.
Yeah, and I always look at, like, and I was saying this to a coworker today who has experienced some loss recently. And so I said, if you don't take time off for yourself, or you don't raise your hand to say that you're struggling, you're going to be judged or evaluated based on your current performance, assuming that everything is okay. And so I think the first step starts with raising your hand and saying, you know what, maybe I need a day off. Maybe I need a week off. You know, like particularly around loss, and like there's some horrific stuff going on in India right now, and just around the world with COVID. Like, just take your time. There is no one that is 70, 80 years old that looks back and says, I wish I worked harder. Everyone says they wish they spent more time with their families, more time with their relationships. And I get it. It is hard. And I did not do that, because the reason I'm at where I'm at in my career is because I worked so hard. But I also struggled, burnt out, crashed and burned, and spent several years trying to find my way back. And it was life and death for me.
It's so often we just see like your LinkedIn resume, right? And don't see like everything that went into that and what you dealt with. I think that's a big issue.
I should add it, right? I should add, like, between this year and this year, I was doing this.
Your trauma resume.
Yeah, right. See, we can have fun around this topic as well. You know, we're not a glum lot.
I would love to see somebody do that. I might do that as
Travis,
a joke.
we should do a customer engagement lab branded trauma resume.
And here's the job where I had a panic attack and had to leave work and go cry in my car for 2 hours.
Yeah,
it's a good year.
That was the turning point where I realized I didn't want to be in this career anymore.
Yeah.
And Tim, I mean it when I say you're one of my favorite brains. You're also one of my favorite people, even though we've only talked a couple times. So I really appreciate you coming on, man. What's the best way for people to connect with you online?
LinkedIn is the easiest thing. Tim Clarke with an E, the British spelling, and then check out uncrushed.org, www.uncrushed.org. If you want to get involved, we are always looking for people to share their personal experiences. If you want to donate, you can do that. We're a 501c3. And if it's not us, just do something for another mental health organization. Like, I'm a big believer it takes a whole movement of people and organizations to make a change. And so, but for me, that's the two ways of connecting with me.
Yeah, check out UNCrushed. We're going to try and put that in the description. So please go there, support Tim and everybody else in the mental health community. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us today on the Customer Engagement Lab, your hopefully weekly source for insights into the minds of people like Tim and unfortunately me and Travis. I'm once again your immaterial co-host, Patrick Downs, the Dr. Manhattan of the modern age. And you also heard from Travis. Travis, who are you?
I go by Travis, used to be a snowboard instructor, Tyler.
Okay, perfect. And you can connect with me and Travis, used to be a snowboard instructor, Tyler, on LinkedIn. And you can follow PandaDoc and the Customer Engagement Lab on LinkedIn, YouTube, and subscribe to the podcast wherever podcasts go in your ears. You guys are beautiful just the way you are, and I'll see you soon.
I'm gonna go get some Tim time later tonight.
Get some Tim time.
That's right, baby.
Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Customer Engagement Lab. For more of Travis and Patrick's chaotic energy, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you would make our hearts smile if you left a super quick rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the show deserves. It'll take you 2 seconds, I promise. Till next time.